Welcome to Q&A with S&A. I am Andrea, and this is our first time sitting at the chair together with Shane and myself. And today we'll be talking about work-life balance with our special guest of the day, who is Joe Stephan. So thank you for joining us, Joe.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Andrea, for having me.
So a brief introduction into what Joe does. He co-owns Stephan Independent Advisory, which is a private wealth management business for family businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a bit about it, Joe.
Yeah, so it's obviously a family business. So I work with my brother, James, and I have been doing so for, it's got to be about 17 years now. So a long time.
Yeah, amazing.
Very enjoyable. We work with clients that are of a similar ilk in the sense that they've got their own businesses that family members are involved in, and with all the issues that are associated with that. So we feel like we're well positioned to be able to help those clients because we're aware of what it takes to run a family business, given we do so ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's important to have a bit of empathy with what they're going through. It makes it, a really good way of giving advice.
Exactly.
So, yeah, great thing. So tell us a bit about you then.
Okay, me. So I would say I'm not your archetypal financial planner in the sense that, especially early days when we were starting out, I definitely felt the pressure of being a certain way, personality-wise, and sort of conforming to the ideals of what financial planners typically look like, conservative and so on and so forth.
A bit like accountants.
A bit like accountants, right?
Yes.
So I'm more of a creative person, and what's great about the symbiosis between myself and my brother is that James is probably more focused on the technical financial strategy side of things. I'm focused more on the business opportunities, the marketing, the client communications, those sort of aspects of business. So in family business, we operate as a 50-50 down the line split on everything in terms of our contribution. And yet we come at our task in very different ways. And that's what's created the sustainability in our practice, and the willingness to want to work in the practice is largely as a result of it being a family business.
Yeah. And just on that family business, it actually goes back before you and James, doesn't it?
Yeah, which is a beautiful thing, because I think part of the reason it works between James and I is that my father, prior to that, was so strong with his sort of ethics and his values. And James and I just have such clear and similar makeup in that area. Our values are aligned, and the way we come about it is different, but that's the perfect scenario. So aspects like, and I know these things when they're said, they almost seem a bit trite, but just an honest approach, an approach of integrity, not just doing everything for the money. These aspects are very clear between James and I, and then the way we actually create the strategies to ensure that the business operates in that way, they can vary between James and I, but we often come to a consensus agreement. So
yeah. I think one of the reasons why we've asked you to be on the podcast with us as well is that all of the things that you've just said mirror almost exactly the way Shane and I work as well, because I'm not an accountant and I don't approach things in an accounting firm or professional services from the same aspect as Shane does either. But as a result of that, we get this perfect blend of what works between the two of us, and so it's a really similar thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can just work in a certain way that that you're going to come. You might diverge for a bit and then you'll come back, but the values and everything around that stays the same no matter which sort of path you've walked on.
Yeah, correct. There's no second guessing on the what's behind the person's responses. It's very innate and very clear for me. Being my brother, we've grown up together. So even conflict resolution, it's quite easy. I think there are some challenges, but they're kind of slight nuanced. They're things like James giving me too many outs because my personal circumstances may have affected my business performance, as an example. And so, talking to each other about setting standards and accountability to each other, even though that we understand and have great empathy for each other. So that, you know, there's an example of a challenge that you have in family business.
Yeah. You just got to approach things from, there's some things that have to be business perspective regardless of the family situation. And I think, you know, being able to set KPIs and goals and all of those things, which normal businesses do, it's good to be able to do that as well. And, you know, that's something that Shane and I have developed along the way as well, that,
sure.
you know, you've got a level of expectation, but it's always good to have, you know, just those dot points. And, you know, as you said, you don't want to feel like you're giving each other too much slack, but still enough slack, because, you know, it's not even slack really, is it? It's just the empathy that you both really are, you know, involved in each other's lives.
Like everything, it's a balancing act.
But,
you know, just good communication and clear communication is a fundamental. We have it in spades. I understand that family business isn't easy because not every family dynamic is the same. And not every family member is the same. So you could have a family business with 3 or 4 siblings or parents involved and so on. That becomes a little bit more chaotic. And in my experience with clients, it's definitely chaotic. And it's a large part of what differentiates. I mean, you're going to talk about differentiation in business. I mean, a large part of the differentiation is the awareness and the empathy around, and the asking the right questions of clients to sort of unravel some of the reasons why things aren't moving forward. And they are usually non-financial reasons that things don't move, the bottlenecks that, you know, are there.
Exactly.
So I think we're very good at that.
We had a conversation with somebody a little while ago who specialises in family businesses. He specialises in family wealth and really high net worth sort of stuff. And one of the things that he said to us was that you know, the more money you've got doesn't make life easier in family situations, because there's so many things to think about and so many things that I guess normal people like us don't think about. Like, you know, do you need to have security, and do you need this and do you need that in terms of like personal security, because we're talking really high net worth families. And he said to us, dealing with family businesses is a really strong sort of niche. Like, you've got to get what they're about. What makes you a really good advisor to family business, do you think? Like, what holistically do you think you bring to family businesses?
Well, you can read as much as you want. You can try to study as much as you want. But the reality of it is, if you're not working exclusively with family business, you're not going to have the practical experience to understand the issues that occur readily. And so one of the things that we did early is to say to ourselves, we're going to put a flag in the ground and say we are for family business. And that means that when clients do call, we let them know that that's the case. So if they've found us on a website search and so on and so forth. What that does effectively means that what you're getting as a stream of clients are the same types of clients. They have all different types of issues, obviously, but you're starting to get a feel for what the family business issues really, really are. And so therefore your processes, your systems, your questions, the way you deliver is relevant, rather than I work with pretty much anyone that has money, right? And then all of a sudden anyone has money sort of dilutes your approach. So what makes us different is the fact that we are strongly and staunchly outside of the financial side of it for family business. And we think that financial comes as a result of that, right? Because people feel and understand that you know what you're talking about and you know how to approach them. And that's why we're getting, you know, very good traction with those families that we work with.
And what are some of the things that you come across every day in those family businesses?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things is, to what extent does a gift actually spoil our children? I don't want my kids to be trust fund babies. Yes, we've got a charity, and I actually feel, so this is with charitable families, I actually feel a great burden of responsibility around that, because we created this money, and yes, we're giving it to charity and it's no longer mine, but we're the custodians. And so I feel somewhat responsible for that. And, you know, every time we give $1 away, what's the impact of that dollar? Is that actually doing anything? Or is this just, we're holding on to this money, giving it away to charity for our own ego? So that, you know, on a charitable side, and family business side is a large part around, you know, kids having different competencies. How do I make one the leader and the other one not feel so, uncomfortable? How do I make sure that my retirement and my plans are sorted such that I don't feel like I need to hold on to this business for grim life? How do I develop a competency outside of my business so that when it comes time to actually retire, I don't stifle my children who are ready to take the next step? These are the aspects that we kind of help with, because as an example, if we can, create the confidence and certainty around a person being able to have the funding to reduce the amount of hours that they do at work, that means they can develop another string to their bow. They can have another hobby. They can do something else. We all know the typical business owner with the pattern that will just keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they've got nothing else. Yeah. Now, I'm not judging that. I'm simply saying that is a practical thing that I see regularly. And it's been so regular that even in my own life, I've completely changed that from now. I'm 42 years old, and I just don't want to be that way. Yeah. I want to have other things that I'm able to do later on in life.
So what are those things?
Oh, great. That's a good question.
Good segue.
Yay. So, for me, I just have heaps of hobbies that I like. One of my favorites is music. I find that incredibly rewarding. It's an introverted task. I am extroverted by nature, but I also have periods of time where I seek going inward. And for me, I write music, I play guitar, I sing. I really kind of probably had the insight about 8 years ago that I should go back to that, because when I was a kid, I used to love it. It was the only thing that felt really innate and clear to me that I was good at it. I didn't think too much. Yeah. And I'm a very cerebral person, so it actually settles me. And I also think that, if I wasn't working, I could pursue that for fun and not for any financial reason.
Yeah, that's very cool. We have musical kids, so I understand what you're saying about that, because they are often in their happy place when they are, singing or playing music or creating stuff in that respect. So that I get that. There's got to be something else other than music, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's heaps. I mean, I've got my own podcast, obviously.
Yeah,
so
excellent.
Often people say, is that for the business? And, I would say that it's not really for the business directly.
Yeah.
There's an indirect impact on the business, but for me, it's about my own personal development. And you asked about how I'm able to work with families, and well, when you speak to so many people and you learn about so many people, you're becoming more competent in being able to deal with the issues. You've seen the patterns before. So the podcast is a labor of love, and that's something that I could do forever. And I've done 50 episodes now, and I feel that over those 50 episodes, I have grown as a person. In the last 4 years, I feel like I've grown as a person so much more than I did in 10 years prior. And I think a large part of it is those conversations.
Yeah.
They've informed some very specific aspects of my life.
Yeah. So what sort of guests do you have on your podcast? Like, what's the focus of the podcast?
Yeah, it's funny because I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't just another financial planner podcast, because there's a lot out there. Yeah. And I thought what would be interesting is my observations of people and the way they actually approach money from a meaning perspective. So it's the interaction and the intersection between meaning and money, and how money can be an enabler or a disabler, and how it can be a noose around our neck if we don't allow it to actually allow it to support our ability to meet what we know is going to help our well-being. So money should assist our family. Money should assist our health. Money should assist our personal development. It shouldn't be the thing that takes us away from those things. Yeah. And what I find is that in our capitalist society, and the way we're so economically driven, even as a family unit, we often forget about the things, the fundamentals that are so important, that are sometimes a little bit removed from just chasing the money for the sake of money itself.
Yeah.
And so I have conversations with people who have money, who don't have money, who have interesting stories. I had a guy called the Generosity Monk who effectively gives all of his money away, bar 2 months of his cash flow.
Wow.
And asking him questions around that. I mean, how interesting is that?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a motivator, isn't it? When you finally, get yourself to a point where you can meet with people and just hear their stories. It's like, the people who say that they love to people watch. What you're doing is people listening.
That's true. And I do like the people watch as well.
No voyeuristic situation there at all.
Nope.
So you've done 50 episodes. Do you have a favourite? You don't have to mention the particular person, but, the concept around it. Do you have a favourite?
That's a really good question. I've had so many that it's hard to pin down exactly. I've had a few favourites. I think the ones that tend to focus on things like the value of time versus money really intrigue me. So there was an episode, it was early, and I think I remember it most because I was so excited to get this person on. His name's Hal Hirschfield he's an academic in the UCLA University. He has numerous TED Talks on things like his research into the value of time versus money.
Yep.
And I just found his whole research piece so intriguing and so valuable for me. Again, these things end up informing the way that I run my life.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty fundamental and pretty helpful.
Yeah. And that was an early on one.
Yeah, it was episode 10.
Wow. Okay. So, and your podcast has been going for how long?
It was born out of COVID and out of, you shut down stimulus for me, external stimulus, and then my internals go crazy and I had to do something.
Yeah.
That was the podcast. I developed that during COVID, and then I also developed or created a musical EP.
Okay,
so
wow, that's amazing.
I wrote an album at the same time.
Yeah, fantastic. And where can we listen to the album? Is it on Spotify?
It is.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, it is. And the artist name I used was Joe Steps, and the reason for Yo is because Julian, my nephew, James's son, was calling me Uncle Yo at the time.
Excellent.
So I just thought, it was cute. So
that is a super piece of information that I did not know about you, Joe. So thank you for sharing that today. I'll get the team back at the office to start up the Spotify and the Google Play. So
you might get them sleeping on the job though if they listen to it. It's not exactly pump up music, but anyway.
That's okay. I think accountants are pretty pumped anyway. So. So what does a typical day look like for you?
Oh, it's very varied for me. I like it that way.
Yep.
But we've created a situation in our business whereby we have progress meetings or reviews with clients, and we tranche them in a particular period. So that can be extraordinarily busy at that time, and that's where I'm doing a lot of client-facing work.
Yep.
But there will be on most days there'll be some form of client-facing work. There'll often be some preparation for podcasting. There'll be some liaising with my marketing team to talk about, videos that I want to do or bits and pieces. Internal meetings around administration and workflow for making sure that the clients are getting their implementation sorted out. And then there is definitely a time where James and I might go out for lunch. And one of the things that we have done is to say that once we go to lunch, we're not going to be talking about the business, where that hasn't always been the case.
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing in family business as well, to develop a relationship with family members that aren't just centered around business, that are actually centered around something more, because we're more than just our business, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And how disciplined are you in that respect in terms of not talking about business?
I don't want to throw James under the bus, but James and I reasonably early, I sort of was the one who was quite sensitive to that, because I think for me, talking about the business at all times is more of a stressful endeavor. James is pretty easy with that, so he can just do that all the time. And I sort of said to him, look, for me to have sustainability in this, I can't talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about other stuff. And I also had the insight that down the track, what if, we're out on a holiday? Do we just have nothing to talk about?
Yeah.
And so we're brothers first and foremost, right? So that's the most important thing. And so, me, James and I we'll chat about all bunch of different things now at lunch, which is phenomenal, really.
Yeah, it's good to have those boundaries. I think it's hard to work them out, but it's really important that, particularly if it's for yourself, that you need it for your own mental health and sustainability, then you've got to set them and keep them in place. And it's good that you've both been able to manage that together. Really important.
And the insight comes from, it's just not just something that comes up out of nothing. It comes out of being in family business groups, talking on a podcast. There are a lot of individuals, parents and siblings and their children, as an example, that their relationship centers around the business.
Yeah.
And they know it. And it's hard to uncouple that.
Yeah.
There's a pattern that's been formed. And so having that awareness then informs the way you decide the way you move forward with your own.
Do you give your clients that sort of advice as well? Like, I know that you do finance and wealth and things like that, so that's really important. But from a more holistic perspective, I guess you probably do a bit of like counselling, not officially, but
sort of. It depends on the depth of the relationship, and it depends on their openness to. I'm not just going to give advice to people if I'm seeing, but if I'm seeing something, I'll ask questions, and if they divulge, and I might contribute. But I also use the podcast as a mechanism to say to people, hey, these are our best ideas. Like, have a listen. If I feel like I'm developing at a rate of knots, I'm hoping that people that are listening are also getting the same benefits.
Yeah, true. That's really true.
And back to that experience with family business, what we talked about before was that your dad started this business many years ago.
Yep.
You worked for him at some point. Is that how it worked?
Yeah.
And then there was a succession or a transition?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's another thing. So I say the succession part of it was more on the ethos and the values. I mean, the business, when Dad had it, Dad was first and foremost an academic. So he was an accounting lecturer and financial planning lecturer at the time. And James and I both went through the financial planning degree that he founded with a couple of other lecturers. And he had a tax practice, an accounting practice, and then he started a small bunch of his friends and family some financial planning on the side. As this is how financial planning kind of started. And I came in to the practice after doing the degree, after going away overseas for a period of time, just to help my dad due to his ill health. And I got thrown into a succession that was not very well conceived or planned, even by a financial planner. And the reality of that is because Dad went from someone who was incredibly strong and healthy and fit and motivated and a great decision maker to someone who was now focused on a terminal illness, a whole bunch of worry and stress associated with that. His whole mindset shifted. And I came in, and had no idea about business, none. I was technically competent and I understood financial planning from that point of view, but I had I had a lot of empathy, but I didn't have the life experience to understand what people were going through. Yeah. So it was a really hard time. And so, in formulating the business strategy now going forward, it's been about trying to protect the future Joes of the world, because these men and women that think, that their mortality is forever and is a given. It's just not. And to think about your succession is just so important ahead of the game, because we're not here forever. And then you don't want to be throwing, again, the future Joes of the world, into this situation where they're needing to handle all this. Now, even if I wasn't involved in the business, the estate planning process itself, as an example, that was still harrowing. I had some complications around, all of a sudden I'm running a business and I'm trying to deal with the estate and I'm not really confident. I'm not getting great advice from, the estate planner, and it was hard. And, being the eldest as well, despite my own competency or my emotional capability at the time, grieving my father, I had to deal with all this sort of stuff. So I just thought to myself, well, it's so meaningful for me to be able to create something that is planning for the future. And that's what we do for our clients. And that's why I love what I do.
Yeah. And your personal circumstance informing your ability to give good advice to your
Yeah.
clients, because you've been there.
Yeah.
So you absolutely understand
Yeah.
where they're coming from,
Yeah.
and you want to sort it out for them
Yeah.
before they get
Yeah.
to that point.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you don't want them to have to then
Absolutely.
have to unravel all the things that you had to do.
Yeah.
So it's just a really, unfortunate for you that you had that circumstance.
Yeah.
But how great for the people that you now have the opportunity to come across in your
Exactly.
work.
And my father, was, probably definitely a few rungs above others in terms of what he'd put in place.
Yeah.
And it was still hard for me.
Yeah.
He was a financial planner.
Yeah, he knew the consequences.
He had his wills. He sorted it out. It was
Yeah.
all well mapped out.
Yeah, yeah.
But he wasn't to know that, as an example, the support afterwards in the estate wasn't as great. So one of the questions we have or one of the things that we look for when we vet the solicitors that we work with for our clients is we're looking for, okay, you create a great will, execute a great document. What are the support systems around? What if the owner is no longer there? Who's going to be around to assist?
Yeah.
Do we have an advisory board so that it sits there as something that could help the kids deal with some of these issues afterwards?
Yeah.
We're mapping these things out for clients, and that's why we're getting success.
Yeah, I think that what you're explaining to me is exactly what families need in those situations. They need somebody who has held their hand through the process to make sure that what happens when the time comes is not the end of it. Because as you said, some advisors will just say, oh, well, that person's died now. Yep. And that's that. Yep. And here's the will, and that's all sorted. And
yep.
Because you have an informed conversation with them, they're so much better off when they're under your wings.
Yep. Or some advisors also will just give a handball referral.
Yeah.
We don't do handball referrals. No referral is given unless that particular professional has been put through the ringer in a very respectful and nice way. But it's really important. We ask so many questions and we meet with them so many times before any referral occurs.
Yeah.
Have you reflected on your own succession with the business?
Yes, I have, and we do have mapped out some plans. And I interestingly, it took a little while to get to that, but I think that's because we had such a strong relationship. We felt things would be okay regardless. But I think what was good about going through the process was less about the document and more about the process of the professional asking us the questions. In this instance, what would you do? In this instance, what would you do if you no longer wanted to work in the business? If you had a trauma-related event, how would you handle these sort of scenarios? That's been really valuable because now we are aware of the issues and have come to a consensus agreement. Whether or not the legal document is required or not is a kind of irrelevancy in our minds. But to answer your question, absolutely yes. One of the things that I grapple with, though, is that I love what I do so much, and I'm the type of person that likes to keep stimulated, that I wonder whether there is a life without the business, in the sense that I just love it.
Well, it may not be full-time. It might be in a part-time capacity.
That's what I'm thinking isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
We're looking, we've talked about 4-day working week for quite some time. And I think ultimately we will probably get to that. And that feels pretty sustainable, even just 4 days. Yeah. And again, if it goes 3 days when I'm getting older and older, fine. But I actually think the 4 days sustainable until I drop dead is perfect.
Yeah, yeah. I think we sort of had the same thought, and we'll be having a conversation with our team pretty soon about that sort of thing as well, Joe, because as you said, it's the balance is really important. Yep. And that is part of the succession. Is not everybody wants to work until they drop dead, as you said. Sometimes you've got to do other things, and there's focus on it now rather than leave it until when you retire. Because you would be you'd have the same experience as Shane and I. A lot of clients, when they retire, they don't know what to do with themselves because they've never given it a thought. Like they might play golf on the weekend, or they might, do some art or something like that, but they've not actually thought about how they're going to fill 8 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Because we're born to born to do something, right? So even as we get older, the things that we do tends to change because our brains tend to change, and we've got much more experience as we get older, but maybe we're not as capable as we once were to do the technical things, and that's just science, right? That's just biology. But the mode shifts. So we're exerting during our formal working life, and we're still exerting in our retirement. Now, I think in retirement, the ones that do it really well, they're the ones that really want to give back.
Yeah.
And they get a sense of meaning and from the contribution of their time, their skills, resources even.
It's not a financial contribution. They're not expecting to be rewarded for that. It's just giving back.
No, absolutely. That is the most rewarding thing of a lifetime of work, that somehow you can use that or transition, or even if it's not your work skills that are translating, but just your own resonance with a particular issue that you want to actually work in. So our connection in community seems to become more heightened as we get older. That's what I see.
Yes.
Yep.
So going on to that, because Aintree Group as a business is very community focused, and I'm guessing that Stephan Advisory are the same. Where do you focus now in your community? What sort of things do you do as a person and as a business to bring your community into what you do?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think previously I fell away from that, and I just got, railroaded by business and, trying to meet financial objectives and all of that. And I thought, well, again, like everything else, you can do the financial objective thing at the same time as doing all of the other stuff. Yeah. So, and again, an observation through speaking to people on the podcast is that the ones that seem the happiest and have the most success are also the ones that are giving back right now.
Yeah.
Like right now. So for us, the community is a global community. And whether there are obviously issues domestically that we face, but I think there are many issues with our neighbours just over the road. So, we decided that we wanted to use our skills in some way to be able to assist those that are less fortunate. And we were able to work with a charity matchmaking service called Seedling Giving. I'm just giving them a plug now.
Absolutely.
That we're able to find a charity that were open to us actually being involved in a quite strong and meaningful way. And so we were able to, they do basically financial literacy education and workshops for primary school age children, and now moving into teenage children as well, in PNG centrally and Cambodia. And the wealth inequality in PNG, as an example, is a huge issue. And the only way that it's going to be improved is by improving education around things like financial literacy and empowering people to get better around making decisions, money in their career and so on. So we informed and helped with the syllabus, like just giving our own feedback around what we can teach. Yep. We went to PNG, taught the kids at the Boroko Primary School there as an experience for us so that we could really understand what was going on the ground. And then we continue to have communication with the organisation. I'll plug them as well, KUFA, that we continue to have conversations with them around helping. And so the next thing is teenagers and helping them with, thinking about career and all of that sort of stuff. So we're looking forward to doing that hopefully in 2024.
Yeah, excellent. Does that mean another trip over?
Potentially, yeah potentially. It's not what you'd consider a holiday. It's a great and amazing place, but it's got some challenges and some stuff that we have to be mindful of. But yes, we quite enjoyed it, and it was one of the most meaningful experiences in my career to date. Yeah,
fantastic. If you weren't a financial planner, what would you be? You can't say a musician, because I already know that.
So if it's not musician, I would say, actually, when I was coming out of school, the only thing that came to mind that I felt like I could do really capably was psychology.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I wasn't 100% sure on it either. So I just ended up doing financial planning.
So now you're actually a psychologist, but a financial planner as well. We always say that, what we do is very, very based in psychology as well. Would you ever consider going and doing formal training? Have you done any formal training in psychology?
Well, not formal training, but not formal training, but I read psychology books for fun. I know that sounds really strange, but I enjoy them. Yeah. Many different things, like the way we use language, internally. So the things we tell ourselves and the flaws in our thinking,
Yeah.
and how to dismantle those things. I find that stuff incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
So the answer is probably yes, I would
Yeah.
do something, but I've actually looked into financial psychology because it's a new stream.
Yeah, wow.
But I'm so busy.
Well, that is something that you can do in your day, your 1 day a week that
Maybe
you don't work.
Maybe
Yeah,
if it doesn't
yeah.
get consumed by music.
Yeah,
which is also
exactly.
the-
Well, you can, there's 24 hours in a day. You've got plenty
That's
of
true.
time.
No sleep is required. No. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Because you started your podcast during COVID, and obviously COVID has brought out a whole range of mental health conversations that we have not had in the past because, we, as business owners, that you don't talk about your own mental health. Well, you certainly didn't. We do a lot more now.
Yep.
How do you decompress from a mental health perspective? You've got so much. You've obviously got a lot of experience with, your own readings with psychology. What things can you suggest to other business owners that have helped you decompress, particularly like when it's a really stressful situation?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. I think if there was one thing that I would say fundamentally shifts and aligns you in every other way is exercise.
Yeah.
If you don't get exercise in, I think your stress is not under as much control. I think once you're in your body physically, it shifts you from thinking into, being physical.
Yeah.
But then there's obviously the cardiovascular benefits and all of the rest of it. But it also then informs things like the way you sleep.
Yeah.
It also informs the way you eat. So it's a fundamental, I think, thing that helps us from a mental health point of view.
Yeah.
Obviously, if people are depressed or have anxiety and so on and so forth, exercise ain't going to be the only thing. But for me to just maintain my mental health, exercise has been a real fundamental, to the extent that, like I have my Aura ring, which, records things like my movement and my stress levels and my sleep and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think in the occupation that I have, if I don't handle the mental health side of things with care, I think I'm no good to my clients. So I have a responsibility to be emotionally well adjusted so that when things are hard for my clients, I can absorb what I need to absorb, and not also decline myself as well.
Yeah. I see that a lot in what people like you and Shane do, that you do absorb a lot of people's, and when times are hard, with interest rates going up and all of those things, or everything that's going on in the world, the clients will come and they will need to decompress that information, and they really do rely heavily on their trusted advisors to do that, because they've obviously got a really good relationship with you. How do you and James manage that sort of stuff? Do you do that sort of stuff together, the decompression stuff? Do you exercise together? You obviously go out for lunch, that sort of thing. What else do you do as a family and as a family unit even? Because you mentioned your nephew. How does that all help you?
Yeah, so we encourage each other, with the exercise thing.
Yeah.
And, we'll send each other snapshots of so
a bit of family competition.
Although there's no competition because James is just, he's a freak of nature. So, but, sorry, what was your question again? Sorry.
Just, bringing your family together, and what do you do as a family to make sure that you're looking after each other's, mental health and all of that, from a full family perspective as well, not just between you and James.
Yeah. I think we're a really open family. I think we're a really communicative family, and we care about each other a lot. So I'll speak for myself. I think my biggest challenge is to see someone that I care about that may be struggling, and knowing that there may be something that I'm doing that could assist them, and then advising them in a way, or trying to help them in a way that doesn't sound like I'm telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And the only reason that I feel like sometimes I will tell someone what to do is because I really care, and I feel like something that I am doing might actually help.
Yeah.
So I've learnt with time that people are going to do what they do regardless of, to an extent, of what you say, and they'll do it. They might take up your suggestion at a time when they're ready. So I'm a little bit more relaxed now than I maybe was, and this is a recent kind of insight.
Yeah.
But I think fundamentally that I care, and because I care, particularly, obviously, my family directly, you know, I use the stuff that I've learnt in the podcast and from other amazing people to try to, you know, help the family culture.
Yeah.
And it's about well-being, right?
Yeah, exactly.
In whatever that is.
Yeah. And I think that families are such a tough thing. Like, I had a conversation with some friends last night around the dinner table, and we're talking about Christmas because Christmas is coming up, and I don't know whether it's the same for you guys, but for my friends in particular, they were talking about how much pressure there is around Christmas and organising the family to come together and all of that sort of thing. And Christmas is a really stressful time. And so I think it's really important to have those open communications, because people will often be like, get resentful about who is doing this for Christmas and who is doing that, and whether you catch up with this person. And Shane and I go away for Christmas mostly because we like to spend it with our, you know, immediate family, just our kids. And obviously as the kids grow, our kids are much bigger. They are now off doing their own thing, and we probably will just lay on the couch Christmas Day, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
How do you celebrate holidays with your family?
Oh, well, yeah, for me, it's easy. I'm, you know, I don't have any kids or a partner, so I'm very happy to just hang around with my family. As an example, we're going to Bali.
Oh, awesome.
With James's kids and my mum and my sister-in-law, and, you know, it's going to be amazing. And it's always been, Christmas is always for us, always centered around family and eating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like many other families.
Yeah. Travel. Do you love to travel?
Yes, I don't stop traveling.
Where's your favourite place to travel?
Oh, it's usually, again, centered around food. And I would say Italy is probably my favorite, just from the cuisine. I love the cuisine. The people are great. You know, particularly the regions down south, the foods there are just incredible. And so, I'd probably say Italy. Yeah, for sure.
If you could choose one place in the world that you'd like to live that isn't Melbourne, where would it be?
Oh, God.
Sorry, I just threw that one in there.
So are we talking domestic, or are we talking
anywhere? If you could move anywhere else in the world, where would you go to?
Okay, I would probably. I'll give a bit of a caveat first. I would do more travel quickly just to make sure I'm not missing anywhere. And then I think at this point, from what I know, I'd probably choose something like Sicily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Down south in Italy.
Nice. Nice
chill, beaches, food.
Your guitar on the beach.
Guitar on the beach.
Yeah.
Life is easier. And I'd probably travel between Sicily and Melbourne. That would be my ideal.
Yeah, that sounds like a good dream too. Yeah. And when are you going to retire? I'll just throw that in there so that James has got something to think about.
Yeah, I think like I said before, I don't think I will retire in the sense of retirement, but there'll be a shift in mode. And the shift is going to be a graduating one too. So like the idea of a 4-day working week is a gradual retirement, even if it happens at the age of 45.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good way to be as well, because the flexibility of what you do and the reason why you run your own business and a family business just gives you that. And I think that's why a lot of people choose to run their own businesses, because it just gives that flexibility to do that. And how great is it that now you could actually retire and be on that beach in Sicily and still be doing work back home for clients?
I think we use the word retirement just to describe something, but absolutely. I think really it's not retirement. It's just a change in exertion. That's it.
I think as business owners, I think that retirement word is actually phasing out. I don't think it's that relevant
anymore.
I hope
so. Yeah. Because I don't really love it.
No.
It has a connotation of it that you just sit back and you do nothing. Now, if that's your choice and that's what you want to do, bless you. I hope you are able to do that. I can't do it.
No.
So
it's like a cliff sometimes.
Yep.
And so, the conversations that I have with clients and people is that, business owners particularly, is that retirement is not the word. It's about, as you said, it's phasing or changing mode.
Yep.
Which is the key thing.
I agree.
And if you're still healthy, keeping your mind active until the age of 80 plus, that's fine.
Why wouldn't you want to contribute?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I think most people would. I think,
Yeah. I think we've found that many clients who choose to retire never retire. They start up a different business. They go into some other sort of exciting proposition because they find something, because their mind, they want to keep their mind active.
It's like a football player that just sort of finishes and then says, I'm going to do maybe 6 months to a year of doing not much. And then all of a sudden they're like, I got to
what do I do now?
Right? It doesn't change just because you get older.
No, exactly. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Really appreciate it. As I said, you are our first. So when we're on our 50th episode, hopefully we will have a conversation and talk about 50 episodes. But I really appreciate your time today, Joe. It's been really great.
Well, if this is your first, I can't wait for your 100th. I mean, this was great. So I appreciate it's an honor, and I appreciate being on it at all. So thank you very much.
Amazing.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
No worries.